Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is on a buyer's guide for the Mark II Renault Master, which may help future buyers out and what to look for. They're pretty good vans. Rust wise, from 2003 to 2010, the bodies are all galvanised and the chassis galvanised, so not a lot of rust at all. The only thing that does maybe get some rust is the jacking points, where careless tyre fitters use their trolley jacks and do damage to the jacking points, which can remove the galvanised plating, and they start to rust. The only other places where they rust really, or can rust, is underneath the side mouldings here. Look for any telltale signs of rust dripping down, because where the fixings go through the holes in the mouldings into the bodywork, they can affect the edges of the holes and take the galvanised plating off and then start to rust there. So yeah, just look out for any telltale signs of rust dripping, rust marks, stains. The other things to look out for are hinge wear on the side loading door. Make sure that the catches seem to be all lubed nicely, and obviously when you open and shut the side loading door, make sure that it fits correctly. All the gaps seem to be the same. It doesn't seem to be dropped anywhere. Okay. Rear doors. The only thing that suffers with the rear doors is the actuator for this central locking can start to play up. So when you get the key fob and operate open and shut, sometimes it doesn't open and shut and may need a new actuator. But the main problem with these doors is the hinges. They can seize up and be very, very stiff to open. This was okay when I bought it. This door was okay, but this door, I could barely open it because the hinges, because they're exposed to all weathers, they get rain in them, and the hinge pins start to rust up. So yeah, have a look at those. Even if they are stiff though, you can work on them and lube them all up and get them opening and shutting nice. So another big thing, obviously, with buying any van or any vehicle is check the service history. Don't just take the seller's word for it. You know, ask to see the service history. When the cam belt was last replaced, and when was the last service, kind of what oil did they use, is it a good oil, you know, things like that. When was the gearbox serviced? Also, when you take it for a drive, these vans are known for weak gearboxes. The engines can go on for hundreds of thousands of miles if serviced regularly. The gearboxes are the Achilles heel to these Mark IIs. It tends to be the bearings in the gearbox that go. So take it for a test drive. Before you take it for a test drive, see if the owner has warmed up the van first, because if he's warmed it up before you get there and the engine's warm when you do get there, you've got to ask yourself why. Why has he warmed it up first? You know, really, you want to kind of start it up yourself from cold and see how the engine's running, and have a good listen, see if there's any unusual knocks. Take it for a drive, and then when you're driving it, focus your hearing on any gearbox noises, because that is, you know, that's going to cost you a few bob if you have to have the gearbox taken out and reconditioned, new bearings and whatever. That's going to cost probably about £1,000, 1,200 for someone to take the gearbox out, put new bearings in and put the gearbox back in. Plus you've got to have a new clutch at the same time. And while we're talking about the clutch, yeah, obviously when you're test driving it, make sure when you pull away, the clutch is, say, halfway point, biting point, and there's no noises coming from the clutch. It feels nice and smooth. Yeah, so just like a car, really, just make sure the clutch is good. Obviously, have a little walk around, see if the tyres are good. And when you're test driving as well, listen out for any knocking or banging, or even whining, really, from your front suspension. Wheel bearings tend to make a whining, droning noise. So yeah, listen out for any unusual knocks and bangs there. Also, when you've had your test drive, when you come back and stand still, just put your hands on the wheels, just to see if they're warm or hot. If they are, then that could give you an indication that the handbrake is binding on, because that's another thing with the Mark IIs. They suffer greatly from they have pretty much, it's a bad design rear calipers on these, and they tend to bind on, seize up and bind on, and so do the cables that operate. They tend to get water in them, rust up, bind up, and then the same type of thing. It makes the brakes seize on. And especially if you notice when you own them for a little while, and then you suddenly notice that your miles per gallon are going down, that's the first thing to check, really, is the back brakes, to see if they're binding on. So that's the brakes covered. Any oil leaks from the engine, you get underneath, have a little look, see if it's got the lower engine cover, or lower engine tray, they call it, or cover, because if it's got one of those fitted underneath, it stops a lot of road salt, water and crap getting up into all your auxiliary parts of the engine and the engine itself. Just underneath the driver's wheel there, you can see all the auxiliary belt that powers the alternator and things like that. Not the water pump, because that's mechanically driven. But yeah, if it's got an engine tray, that's good, because it will have less corrosion and water ingress into the engine parts and things. A quick check to see if you've got any head gasket problems or anything like that is, obviously, look at the water, see if that's up to level, and then when you come back as well, see if it's at the same level. Take the cap off the oil filler, and then just see if there's any, like, what would look like mayonnaise or anything like that. That's a good indicator that something's not right with the head gasket or whatever. Yeah, make sure you dip the oil, check, see if it's not really black. You want a nice colour to the oil, so that it indicates that it's been changed not so long ago. But yeah, they're very good vans. Obviously, with the inside, if you manage to get hold of a cheap fault code reader, an OBD2 fault code reader, like I've got here, it's nice to take one with you, because there may not be no lights on the dash showing, but you can still plug it in to see if there's any historic faults. So this end, you let these little clips down, and then the OBD port where you plug that in is just through there. See that little yellow thing there? That's the port in there. Okay, plug it in anyway, and if the owner shouldn't mind, because if there's no problems with it, he won't mind you plugging in to check any historic faults. If there is lights on the dash, then obviously it's great that you've got this, because it will tell you what fault it is, and you can kind of Google the fault code and see what the problem is, and then you can kind of weigh up from there how much it's likely to cost at a garage, or if you can fix it yourself, how much the part would be and things like that, if it's a sensor or something or other. Electrically wise, it's French, so they do suffer from electrical problems. They're mainly, the problems you get is bad earths on these. They can throw up a lot of different problems, like with the lighting, especially the backlights and things. But electrical problems are yeah, it's a Renault, and you get in there. So just check all your switches. If you've got any options like electric windows, air conditioning, which this one's got air conditioning. Turn it on. Make sure it all works, and all your lights. Have a little walk around. Check all your lights are working, because obviously, the more that's not working, the more it's going to cost you to get all to get it all done. So yeah, just check all the electrics out. What else have we got here? Yeah, obviously if it's got cruise control, electric windows, air conditioning, all the types of options, make sure it's you either get the owner to turn it on, or turn it on yourself, and just check that it's all working. Things you can also, other things you can check just to see if it's, if the wear and tear of the van coincides with the service histories. Just check things like the wear on the pedals, the seat wear. I mean, obviously these seats have been changed, but if it had the original seats, they normally obviously split here when you're getting in and out, and your wallet catches it all the time, and it rips the material seat open. So just obviously just compare, see if the wear is concurrent with the age of the vehicle and the mileage. But yeah, I mean, the main, as I say, let's go back to this. The main Achilles heel is the gearbox in these. A lot of people describe them as made of chocolate. I think if they're treated nicely, and not like a sports car, the gearbox, and if it's maintained properly, it uses an Elf oil that Renault recommend. And if that's changed, say every second engine service, the gearbox is serviced as well, and it's a quite easy thing to do. So yeah, and it's treated carefully. The gearbox will last and last and last. But if it's ragged around and thrashed to within an inch of its life, the gearbox is not going to last. But so after you do buy the van and it does develop a gearbox whine, or suspect gearbox noises, then don't drive it. Kind of park it up until you can arrange for the gearbox to be taken out and reconditioned. Don't keep on driving it when it's whining and moaning, because it'll just do more damage, and you'll end up having to buy a whole new box, when all it could need is, say, just new bearings in the gearbox. So yeah, my advice there, any noises, don't drive it anymore. Yeah, obviously any extras like fog lights, make sure they're working. But other than that, they are very good vans. Anything before 2003, I think they can suffer quite bad rust effects, and that they need a lot more inspecting underneath, especially the seals, things like that, because they do rust, the older ones. But as I say, in this video, we're just covering the 2003 to 2010 model, which are galvanised. Yeah, that's about it, I think, guys. Yeah, so we're just checking my little list here as we're walking around it. Something that we haven't covered. Oh yeah, central locking. Obviously, try that. Make sure all the door locks lock and unlock. Test the alarm. Make sure that works. What else we got here? I think we've just about covered everything, really. But yeah, it's loads of common sense. Obviously, when you're walking around, you'll get a feel for whether it's been looked after or not. But as I say, don't just take the owner's word for it that it's got service history. Ask for it, go on the MOT check history and just see what advisories it's had on previous MOTs. Really, these engines will literally they're good for hundreds of thousands of miles, and I'd suggest doing a service, an oil change service with air filter and all that every 6,000 miles, and then you'll be good. Some companies obviously leave it longer than that. They'll do it every 12,000 miles or every year, whatever comes up. But when it's your own vehicle and you want to make it into a camper like I have, or and you want to look after it, I'd suggest every 6,000 miles. Put the proper ELF oil, I think it's ELF NFX oil, in the gearbox. Change that every second engine service, and it'll look after you. They're very good vans, very solid. You can have front wheel bearing problems, but that obviously comes with a lot of miles generally. I think this one's only on about, I think it's only just turned to 80,000. So, and I've known some of these vans, they've got 600,000 on them. So yeah, they do last well. Any questions, guys, that you have, pop in the comments. And yeah, anything you're not sure of, just ask and I'll try and help. But my advice was, as I say, would be definitely have a good look round it before you hand over any deposit or any money. Check its MOT history, especially its service history. And if you can, buy one of these cheap OBD code readers to go and look at it, just to see, even if it's got no codes, then at least you can see any historic fault codes that are stored in the ECU. Okay, guys, I hope this has really helped you out. And yeah, they're good vans, and they don't suffer nowhere near any kind of rust issues like a Transit does. These are from 2003 to 2010. And I think the Mark III, which is 2010 on, I think they're galvanised as well, but don't quote me on that. But anything before 2003, I think, can have its rust issues. So, yeah, I hope this helps. Okay, guys, thanks. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.